When it comes to animals you don't want to mess with, most people think of dangerous carnivores. Lions, tigers, crocodiles, you know, the usual suspects. But maybe, just maybe, herbivores deserve a little more credit, because nature didn't just make plant eaters soft targets. Nope, it made one of the deadliest animals on Earth to show that the vegetarian squad is no pushover. In fact, one of them kills more people than tigers. Yeah, I'm talking about hippos. These things have anger issues baked into their DNA. Yeah, you just existing near their watering hole is enough to turn them Super Saiyan and chase after you. And walking by their river, yeah, congrats. You just got express shipped to the afterlife. That got me thinking, what happens when a hippo stops bullying antelopes and boats and steps into the deep end? What if it crosses paths with a top-tier apex predator from the sea? And what better rep for the ocean than the great white shark? This is one of those matchups to make your brain hurt, but also spikes your curiosity. After all, you did click on this video, and you want to know who would win in a fight between a hippopotamus and a great white shark. On one side, we have a land tank that looks like a marshmallow, but hits like a freight train. And on the other, we have a bloodthirsty torpedo with teeth that haunts the coasts and makes you wish you had a bigger boat.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Yeah, this one's gonna be wild. So how would a fight like this even happen? And who would win this fight? Well, the answer might surprise you. So stay locked in, because this is actually gonna be really interesting, let me tell you. But before we begin, I would appreciate it if y'all subscribed, like this video, comment it while y'all think. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm and would really mean a lot to me. And we're on our road to 100K here. And if we manage to reach that goal, I will do a special video for y'all, whether it's me doing tug of war against a big cat, testing my strength against a gorilla, or something really cool like that. Sounds fun? So let's achieve that. But enough of the self-promo. In order to analyze who would win a fight, we gotta establish some ground rules. Now look, I know what you're thinking. Aren't these animals from two totally different worlds? Fair, but that's where our imagination comes in. The only way to make this fair is if the fight happens in a neutral environment. So let's say this brawl takes place in an open bay, about maybe 20 to 25 feet deep. So this allows good room for the shark to move around, and for the hippo to not completely drown here. And by the way, we'll assume both the hippo and great white shark are angry adults in their primes and want to duke it out. So yeah, they have to fight. But with all that said, let's see who wins this fight. Size and physique. The hippopotamus. It's a walking war crime with tusks. People tend to think herbivores are gentle, grass-munching pacifists. But not this beast. The hippo is a muscle-bound menace straight out of a nature documentary gone wrong. Approaching hippo is not a feat of bravery, people. It's an IQ test. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. In fact, adult hippos can destroy cars with ease, have been shown to humiliate lions, and even crunch through watermelons like candy. And physically, it's a nightmare for any carnivore. You see, the hippo has a bit of a reputation for being a living tank. It supports a barrel-wide ribcage and a low-slung, dense frame that's as robust as it is terrifying. I mean, a lot of people think it's just a big blob of fat moving around, but in actuality, they are really muscle dense. And this is proven not only by their buoyancy in water, but also their subcutaneous fat lining being rather thin for an animal of their size. To put simply, why they don't look super jacked is because of their very thick skin that can grow up to 2 inches deep. Yeah, that might as well be armor-plated leather. In fact, hippos are so durable that they've been known to survive rifle shots. That's wicked, but okay, we get it. They are super tanky and carry the attitude fit for Frieza. So just how big is this river warlord? Well, the average bull hippo clocks in anywhere between 3,000 to 4,000 pounds and reaches around 11 feet in length. Yeah, that's an animal the size of a car that hates everything. But now let's talk about mobility, because this is where things get interesting. In shallow water, hippos are surprisingly agile. Their buoyancy lets them pivot, lunge, and bounce like 2-ton pinballs. And this is also in large part due to the medium of water, making it easy for them to do so. Essentially, it takes less stress of the limbs. But here's the catch. Hippos can't swim in the traditional sense. They actually gallop or bounce alongside the riverbed. But let me tell you, their bulky and chunky frame may be great for durability, no doubt, but they definitely do not have a streamlined body. So their gracefulness and agility will definitely take a hit when it comes to deep waters. You know, hydrodynamics will not be in their favor here, and those exposed legs could be exploited. And speaking of nightmares with a mouth that will send you straight to the ER, let's talk about the great white shark. It's the apex predator, a torpedo-shaped monster, and a full-time reason why seals don't sleep well at night. These things haunt the coastal waters like a movie villain, silent, cold, and perfectly engineered to ambush anything unlucky enough to enter their domain. And their domain? Yeah, it spans oceans across the globe. Anywhere temperate water touches land, the great white likely patrols. In fact, it's pretty much unrivaled when it comes to presence and power. Well, besides maybe its one enemy, killer whales. But let's be real here. Killer whales are basically the final bosses of the ocean who roll in and do whatever they want. But that should not take away from what the great white brings to the table. Because when it comes to solo killers of the ocean, the shark is about as elite as you can get. In fact, they are so strong that they've been known to snap through metal cages. But now let's break down this beast, shall we? And surprisingly, the female great white sharks tend to be the heavyweights of the species, often outsizing males when fully grown. In fact, mature females typically average between 15 to 16 feet in length and weigh in around 1,500 to 2,400 pounds. Yeah, that thing is a literal ton of problems for any fish. But when compared to the hippo, yeah, it's obvious the hippo has a weight advantage here. But perhaps the longer and sleeker body of the shark might actually give it some advantages. You see, in water, weight isn't really that big of a factor compared to something like its structural build. This is because the water medium lessens the weight of animals, so it likely wouldn't really play as large of a role as it would on land. And here's the thing, while the hippo is built for sheer durability, the shark is built for aquatic efficiency, stealth, and lethal attacks. You see, great whites display something called counter shading. Their white underside and darker upper body makes them very hard to see in open water, and even breaks up the outline of the shark. From above, their top blends into the ocean depths, and from below, their belly disappears into the glare of the sun. So perhaps seeing them far from underwater would be a hard thing to do. And next is their skin. Now, it's not exactly hippo level in durability, but they do have something called placoid scales, which are tiny, tooth-like structures across their skin. This not only makes it resistant to scratchy surfaces, but also reduces drag in water, which basically turns the shark into a streamlined bullet. Oh, and just one more thing about their anatomy, which does have both pros and cons, is their fins. To put simply, their tail fins are the main driving force when they move. Their dorsal fins provide stability, and their pectoral fins help them with lift and steering. Essentially, to point out the obvious for ya, yes, the shark would be a lot more agile in water, but any damage to those fins could greatly hinder the shark's movements. And they also have something called ram ventilation, which means they have to be constantly moving forward in order to breathe. This means that anything that rams them with a good amount of force could stun the shark. But sheer size and physical build are only half the equation. When it comes to an actual fight, it's not just about what you are, it's about your weapons and how you fight. And these animals are very different and very deadly. So this brings me on to my last point, which is weaponry and fighting IQ. Alright, this fight is shaping up to be a bite against bite slugfest. And while neither the hippo nor the great white shark are the most intelligent, but make no mistake, what they lack in complex strategy, they make up for with raw brutality. In fact, both of them have actually similar bite strengths to one another as to where it really doesn't matter whose is more powerful. But they both have completely different dentistry, which gives them different bite effectiveness and their method of attack. So let's start with the hippo, shall we? This beast is built like a medieval battering ram with a jaw that opens up to 150 degrees. Yeah, that's wide enough to swallow your hopes, dreams, and a few limbs in one go. And its bite, it's no joke. It's estimated to be over 1,800 psi, making it one of the deadliest out there. But here's the thing, it's not just about pressure, it's about how the bite gets applied. You see, the hippo's mouth isn't just big, it's engineered for combat. Yeah, they can grow over a foot long and are constantly being put to use and are very stress resistant. The hippo's teeth act like giant spears, meant for goring and crushing. And by the way, they're specifically designed for combat. They don't chew with them, they fight with them. And their tusks, they can be used to ram and stab. And just in case you forgot how unhinged this thing is, if you ever see a hippo skull out of context, you'd think it's some kind of dinosaur. And here's another thing, the hippo's build does not make it an easy fight. You see, not only do they have very thick skin, as we mentioned, but their body body is very much tubular and wide, which would be hard for the shark or any animal to get a decent bite. Essentially, its body would be hard to latch onto with jaws because of its rounded surface. Kinda like trying to bite a soccer ball. Now, the thing is, when concerning the hippo's bite, it has to be somewhat well placed. After all, it's not an easy feat lugging around and trying to actually sink in those huge canines into an animal. But once it does, you bet it's an absolute game changer. Now, if the hippo is nature's tank, then the great white shark is its torpedo with teeth. And when it comes to underwater warfare, this thing is the apex blueprint. Let's talk weaponry first. The shark's mouth is a flesh-shredding death trap lined with up to 300 teeth arranged in multiple rows, like a conveyor belt of doom. Each tooth is serrated, triangular in shape, and can grow up to 2 inches long. In fact, its teeth are perfectly designed for gripping, tearing flesh, and cutting through meat like it's butter. But it's not just the teeth, it's how the shark uses its bite. You see, when the great white bites, it thrashes its head side to side, turning each bite into a saw-slicing frenzy, and its lateral motion allows the teeth to cause extra damage when shearing through flesh. In fact, the shark's anatomy allows them to have great lateral head movement and enables them to bite down quickly. So perhaps the shark could bite down more rapidly and repeatedly than the hippo. And while its bite force is comparable to that of a hippo's, the effectiveness is totally different. The shark tears, shreds, and bleeds you out. Its whole strategy is built around hit and release tactics. After 1 or 2 bites, it retreats, circles back, waits for you to bleed, and then it comes back to do the same thing over again. So they do like to play the long game with larger animals. Okay, now something to note is that even though the hippo does have dense flesh, great whites are used to dismantling seals and certain whales. So yeah, if it can punch through whale hide, it could pierce the hippo's armor eventually, though it would obviously take some effort. Now, another perk of the shark is its entire body. Yes, it's obviously going to be a lot more maneuverable in water, but the hippo trying to track the shark's movements might pose a problem. As mentioned before, the shark has pretty good camouflage with its counter shading, so perhaps the hippo could struggle to see it easily. But it ain't all perks for the shark, let me tell you, because even though the shark fins allow it to move around easily in water, it's out in the open and can be pretty easy to damage, relatively speaking. So basically, any major damage to it would greatly hinder the shark's movements and might even be game over for it. Now, remember how we mentioned the shark has ram ventilation? Yeah, a solid slam from the hippo could potentially stun it as well. And we all know hippos like to charge and muscle in, but would the shark even allow that to happen? Could it use its superior aquatic build to maneuver around effectively and shear the hippo to shreds to make sure the mammal stays in its lane? Or could the hippo sheer durability, huge crippling canines, and mean attitude reel it in a victory over the shark? Well, people, I think it's about time we determine a verdict. Alright, we have our stats. So, who wins in a fight between a hippopotamus and a great white shark? Well, if we remember the scenario taking place in a bay that's about 20 to 25 feet deep, I see the great white shark taking the W majority of the time. Now, don't get me wrong, this would definitely be a prolonged fight, no doubt, but the shark is much better adapted to an aquatic way of life. It has a serious advantage of agility and speed over the hippo, and given that it likes to shred an animal, keep its distance, and keep constantly biting at it until it bleeds out, might pose a problem for the hippo in the long run. And also, to add salt on the wound to the hippo, the shark would be kind of hard to spot from a distance. This is due to its camouflage, right? So the shark could likely take advantage of that and attack the side of the hippo or its legs and constantly kind of disappear out of sight. It will be a long fight, but the hippo is likely bleeding out and drowning. It eventually has to get up for air, and its legs will be exposed, and so will its underbelly. Now, don't get me wrong, if the hippo obviously lands a clean bite on the shark, it would be game over. But trying to catch the great white in its natural environment would be hard for the mammal to do. Now remember, hippos cannot swim. They rely on bouncing around the water bed, okay? So their range of motion and their movements would be greatly hindered, right? Now, it could use the ground to maybe lunge at it, but once again, the shark can just outmaneuver it. And the great white shark is a very explosive animal. If it finds itself almost getting hit, it could use its tail to kind of burst out of there. Now think about it like this, okay? The hippo would actually kind of struggle to sink its massive teeth into the shark simply because it has to get pretty good bite leverage. To the hippo, the shark shark is basically swimming around it constantly, moving in and out, shearing chunks of meat off the hippo until it just bleeds out and fatigues, and it has to either go up for air or it just drowns to death. Now, don't get me wrong here. If this fight was in perhaps a little bit shallower of water, like 15 feet or so, I could see the hippo winning. It could move around a lot easier, and its sheer durability would definitely help it. But we had to assess somewhat of a neutral environment. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and feel free to check out the rest of my content.